What's up, and welcome to my 50 days later Scar 18 review with the RTX 5080. Now, I've been using this laptop for about 50 days. I put my SSDs in here, and I've been using it for live streaming, video editing, and most of my games. And I played Battlefront 2. They've updated that. It's been on sale. Battlefront 2 has surged to a new level of popularity. If you haven't checked it out and you're a Star Wars fan, check out Battlefront 2. And then Expedition 33, game of the year so far out of the games that I've played. Incredible storytelling. And I've played a lot of hours now on the Scar 18, and it's a great gaming experience. Now, in the first 2 weeks of having the Scar 18, I did run into several system crashes, about 5 in total, that required me to do a hard reboot, meaning I have to hold the power button down for 10 seconds to get the laptop to completely turn off and start back up. Now, after Asus did a firmware update, I've only crashed once in the weeks since. So I think the stability issue has been mostly fixed, at least for me. But initially, I did have stability issues with the Scar 18 in terms of day-to-day use. My favorite thing about gaming on this laptop is that the fans are fairly quiet, the speakers are pretty loud, so you can get pretty immersed into the gameplay with just the speakers. And then on top of that, the wrist rest just stays so cool. It's just a really comfortable gaming experience. And acoustically speaking, it's quite good as well. I barely noticed the fan noise. Now, I did try to use the Scar 18 to watch movies in bed, but the Scar 18 is pretty large and pretty heavy, so it's a little bit gangly to use, but once you get all set up and situated, it's quite nice for watching movies. I do wish the speakers were upward firing. Like, that's probably the biggest difference between like the Blade 18 or the Zephyrus G16. Those laptops feature louder and upward firing, which makes them just way better for watching movies in bed. And you know, it also makes it so the Scar 18, since they're downward firing with the Scar 18, when it's on your chest versus on a table, the table is much louder because the sound will bounce off the table and come back to your ears. So when you're in bed, you just don't get that same reverberation of the sound. And so the sound quality kind of goes down, and there's a little bit less bass, and the volume is down as well, but it's also closer to you, so it's still pretty loud. Overall, Scar 18 is a pretty good bed movie watcher, but not the greatest for sure because of its weight and also the speaker quality not being that great. Let's talk display. How did I actually like using the mini LED display after using so many different high-end displays, including OLEDs? Well, I love it. The multi-zone strong is amazing for watching movies and playing games, and then the single zone where all the local dim zones are turned off basically, and you get equal backlight. That one is amazing for productivity. Now, the main downside here is that you have to switch between them, unless you're okay with just the single zone, but then you don't get as much contrast and the brightness is not as high. So I don't know what the solution here is, but I do wish it was a little bit easier to switch between the modes, because I find myself, like, I go in to edit a video, I switch it to single zone, and then I go to play a game, and I'm like, the screen's not quite as bright as what I would like. Let me switch it to the multi-zone strong. And so I ended up switching it back and forth quite a few times. But I can say that the image quality when playing games on multi-zone strong is equal to the best, and when you're in general productivity, the single zone is fantastic, and it makes it a great overall experience for basically everything. But the main downside is, of course, having to switch the display mode, and I kind of wish there was some way Asus could automate this process, or maybe just add the zone switching as a hotkey on the laptop so you can quickly switch with just a tap of the button between maybe your two favorite modes. And so I just found myself switching a lot, and that's probably the #1 reason why I think maybe OLED might be a little bit more convenient. Thankfully, I will have a chance to use an OLED laptop as my next laptop. I've got the Zephyrus G16 coming in soon, and I'm going to switch into that laptop for my next long-term use test. So the rest of this review now is going to go over all the details that we found out in our 4 hours of live streaming and testing of the Scar 18. Hope you enjoy it. Here it is. In terms of value in comparison against the other laptops on the market, the Strix Scar 18 is positioned in, I would say, a medium price range, medium high price range, especially for the 5080 model. It's about $3,400 for the RTX 5080 with the 18-inch Scar 18. You go to the 5090 model though, it's an $1,100 bump up to $4,500. That's a huge bump for maybe only 12 to 15% gain in performance. So if you're after the value, go for the 5080 version for sure. In terms of the laptops out there that have the best competition in 18-inch form factor, I'll just briefly tab through them. So you have the Scar 18, Scar 18 5090, Then you have the Legion 9i, probably the most anticipated 18-inch laptop that is coming out in July in Asian markets, but in more like October, November timeframe for USA market. This has a 3D display that's native without 3D glasses. 4K 240 Hz, 16 by 10 aspect ratio, dual native with full HD plus 440 Hz. Super cool. DCI P3 display. If I could buy any high spec ultra premium machine, it'd probably be this one, I don't know. Just because of the 3D display, I think is gonna be so cool. I talked about that more in detail in the full live stream. Then you have the Acer Predator Helios 18. It is a good one, but I would buy the Scar 18 over the Predator Helios, unless the Helios 18 is a little cheaper, because the Scar 18 has a lot of design improvements, like the toolless bottom, the 360-degree light bar, and I think the QHD display is a lot better than this UHD 120 Hz display. The MSI Titan also similarly has the Achilles heel of the 4K 120 Hz display, which again is not ideal, especially for a lot of games. You know, when you are looking to get maximum frame rates, it's not going to be ideal. The Razer Blade 18, on the other hand, has a dual native UHD 240 Hz, 1440 Hz, full HD plus. So you have the flexibility of going to the ultra high refresh rates if you want to. So in this scenario, I could theoretically take a UHD display if it's at least 240 Hz. You at least have the trade-off of being able to use more upscaling to get the same frame rate. The Alienware 18 Area 51M is also extremely promising and provides probably the best bang for the buck value on the market in 18-inch gaming laptops, which is crazy to say because, yeah, it's at $38.99, making it only a few $100s more to get the 5090 variant. So very, very good overall value. The Strix G18 with the 5080 is $30,059, and comparing that to the Scar 18 5080, we're looking at $33.99, so $340 cheaper. So if you're after value and you don't care about all the RGB effects, go for the Scar G18. It has the same vapor chamber, same cooling and thermal solution, and the 360-degree light bar. You can go for the Ryzen version of the G18 as well. I did not put that in here. The MSI Raider A18 is your other option if you want to get the HX3D chip. So the Ryzen 9 9955 HX3D. The downside here with the Raider as well as the Titan is there's no G-Sync or Advanced Optimus on these two laptops. You also, again, have the Achilles heel of the UHD 120 Hz display, which I just don't find ideal. It's also going to be quite a bit more than the Scar 18 at $4,100. So you want to pay $700 more, then that's an option. But the HX3D is the reason largely why it's more expensive. Those are going to be your primary alternative options. The biggest pros and cons to the Scar: amazing lighting, amazing display, super bright and vibrant, 240 Hz, mini LED up to 1200 nits brightness. We tested it today at 612 nits, sustained brightness with the Spider 5 Elite. We also only got about 95% P3 color gamut on the display, so not quite 100% of the P3 color gamut. HDR mode on the display is still bugged. We didn't get great display there. Now, one great thing about the Asus display is you do have a lot of options for multi-zone, strong, multi-zone balanced, one zone, or you can jump over to the HDR options and do vivid or true color, which is going to be a bit more of a neutered color look, if that's what you want. I personally would not use that. I might use regular HDR options, but lots of things are bugged with HDR in Windows, so I just leave HDR alone, leave it in SDR, and either do multi-zone strong or one zone. Those are the two that I think are the best. Now, for the ports, we have dual Thunderbolt 5s on here, which is great. A headset combo port, 3 USB-A 3.2s, an HDMI 2.1, an upward-facing Ethernet port, and a power port. Now, we did discover today that the power port does cause some wiggling. It does have a bit of a wiggle to it here, which I don't like. I think they should design this a little bit tighter. It is what it is. I don't think it's going to be a big problem, but it's certainly an area that Asus can work on or should work on for some improvements. And there are, of course, 2 USB-A 3.2s over here as well. And really, we're only missing a full-size SD card slot to get the full suite of ports that a lot of the other 18-inch laptops have. So that's what I would say to Asus. Add the full-size SD card slot for the creators out there that want to have access to their SD card slots on the go. Removing the bottom on this is incredibly simple. It's a latch. It pops open. I removed it and added it back about 5 times in about 30 seconds. It's super easy to do. It's the most convenient way I've ever seen a laptop for opening and closing the bottom of the chassis. In addition, there are quick release latches for the SSDs, so you can also upgrade your RAM and SSD without even needing a single set of tools, which I've never seen on a laptop before. So that's also giant thumbs up. Now for bloatware, there's McAfee on here. That's the Bane one, and there were some really annoying pop-ups. You gotta stop this, Asus. You gotta stop putting these pop-ups on people's laptops. They're like scary pop-ups for no reason. It's a brand new laptop, and no user should have to go through panic mode. There's malware on my computer. How'd malware get on my brand new laptop? When there obviously isn't any, and it's just scare tactics to get people to spend money, and it's quite frankly shameful. So stop that. It's bad. I know that McAfee may be paying you a few bucks, but if you pre-install McAfee, it should not be actively doing anything. But better yet, just give us a clean install of Windows, please. I don't want it popping up in the middle of my games. I don't want it interrupting my day-to-day use of the laptop, and I don't want it taking up my GPU, CPU resources. It's just bad. Stop it. Keyboard and mouse is great on this laptop. You have a large glass trackpad. Fantastic to use. It feels great. I still think there are some improvements that could happen to gaming laptop trackpads in general, but this one is a good one for a traditional glass trackpad. The keyboard has a lot of secondary functionality that is also very good. I do enjoy the secondary functions on the keyboard, and the number pad also is large enough and has a lot of functionality built into it, so giant thumbs up. Overall, the keyboard, it works great, the backlight works great, but I do wish the backlight would get another step brighter, maybe even 2 steps brighter, so that it's as bright as the best laptops on the market. Let's talk contrast, 600,000 to 1, and this is a mini LED display, so that means there is bloom on the laptop's display. It's gonna be only noticeable when you have a bright object on dark background, and I did not demonstrate that for you today, but I've demonstrated it for you in the past. It just causes a little bit of a halo effect around that bright object on dark background. And OLED displays also have this, but the bloom effect, I think, is a little bit more minimized, so a little bit less noticeable. Overall, I think this mini LED display is super competitive with OLED options out there for both video editors as well as content creators and gamers who just want a super bright, vibrant, high response rate display. It's just a giant thumbs up. It's hard for me to complain about the display, especially given all the customization options that Asus gets you for the local dimming. This is certainly an improvement over the 2023 Scar 18 display, because that one only had 1,000 dimming zones. This one has 2,000, so this one is definitely a step forward in the right direction. For UFO ghosting test, we did not see any ghosting. It looked flawless to me. Very, very clear image on the UFOs flying through the lanes. The laptop control software sadly has regressed. We have, Asus has split apart many of the settings into different areas of the software for no reason, and I think that Asus should revert these changes and, as a matter of fact, consolidate the software down to, everything needs to come down to a central dashboard hub and not be split between my Asus and Armory Crate, and all the settings basically need to be accessible at 1 click, and maybe at 2 clicks if you go here, you click on like here to go to overclock, and then you can then overclock in a separate window, but everything's accessible at 1 click from one place for a laptop. It's like they're trying to control desktop hardware, laptop hardware, motherboard hardware, just straight regular RGB hardware, all from like one centralized control software, and they're failing, in my opinion. And that's why thousands of Asus users are jumping over to G-Helper to control their laptop's performance, because it gives you a central dashboard where all the settings are located, and it even gives you undervolting and overclocking options that are not available in Armory Crate. So I haven't done much testing with G-Helper myself, but I know a lot of users really, really like it. So I would say, if you don't like Armory Crate, consider jumping over to G-Helper if it's supporting all of the Scar laptop's features. I'm not sure yet, I haven't tested it, but just throwing that out there as a potential option since Armory Crate needs some work. For speakers, we tested it. We got around 86 decibels, which is not particularly loud. It's also not particularly great bass, and the mids and highs are also not great. I would say the speakers are just a little bit above average. I gave them like an 8.6 rating. They sound the same as they did in 2023. And on such an expensive laptop, I would expect better speakers. Asus, you can definitely up the speaker quality. I think you can definitely enjoy your games with the speakers just fine. For fan noise testing, we had silent mode giving us around 70 watts total combined load and basically no noise generated, which is going to be good enough for casual older games or gaming on low FPS in some modern titles. Performance mode gave us great performance and 51 decibels of fan noise. Turbo mode gave us 54 decibels and great gaming performance. Manual max fan mode, I believe, was around 56 decibels and obviously maximum performance and slightly lower temperatures than turbo fan mode. 8 to 64 RAM speed test showed us that the RAM in here is just average. Nothing special. Definitely going to be faster RAM on other laptops that go up to 6400 mega transfer, as well as laptops that offer RAM tightening support for the RAM timings, or you could also alternatively just buy faster RAM and put it in here. That's another option too. So if you like the Scar and you want faster RAM, there's obviously options out there for upgrading it. I currently run Kingston Fury Impact RAM, and I bought that RAM in 2023, and it's faster than this RAM in 2025, so yeah. There may be better options than Kingston Fury Impact. I just haven't done some RAM speed testing lately to find the best kit again in the last 2 years. CrystalDiskMark gave us 6800 for the write, 6000 for the read. Very fast SSD. It's going to be great. It's not going to be as fast as the Gen 5 SSDs, and it's a little sad that you don't give you a Gen 5 SSD out of the box. For Cinebench R24, we got 2,128 for our multi-core and 133 for our single core, which is obviously great performance, but it's not as good as what we saw in other high-performance machines that can go up to a higher wattage. And when we actually tested this in Cinebench, we saw that the wattage seems to be capped around 150 watts. When in manual mode, I told it to go to 175. So we're missing 25 watts of performance that Armory Crate is basically taking away from us, I would say, because basically I think the firmware is limiting it to only 150 when it's supposed to go to 175. So Asus, you got some BIOS firmware tweaking to do to get this thing to go to the maximum possible performance that it should. And if it did 175, we would up those Cinebench scores by, I don't know, 25, 50 points probably. Not gonna be huge, but definitely better performance than what we have right now. In addition, I would say that other laptops, the Legion Pro 7i, the Neo 16, the MSI Titan 18HX, are gonna have higher CPU power limits, potentially up to 200 watts. And that's gonna give you scores closer to 2200 instead of 2150 or whatever we had here. For TimeSpy, in manual mode with a slight 50/100 overclock, we got 22,280 in TimeSpy GPU, 16,377 for CPU, and those are obviously excellent scores. We've seen several RTX 5080s only get around 21 to 22,000, so this is certainly an above average TimeSpy score, which is good. Good job on the TimeSpy score. Baldur's Gate 3, we saw some great performance, up to 240 FPS on average with good 1% lows, no issues in Baldur's Gate 3. Counter-Strike 2 also had great performance with pretty much no performance issues. Cyberpunk 2077 ran really well with great performance. Elder Scrolls Oblivion, also great performance, 120 or so FPS. So I'm gonna use that as the benchmark, I think. This area is a great area to do it. So 69, 53. God of War, we had excellent performance and no performance issues. Hogwarts also ran well, except for some 1% low stutters. Marvel Rivals, unfortunately, had bugged performance with a lot of stuttering. Nothing I could do seemed to fix the problem. We changed a bunch of settings, turned NVIDIA Reflex on, off, frame generation on and off. I think the game is bugged, or NVIDIA drivers are bugged right now. though it ran fine on the other systems, so it's weird. Then Monster Hunter Wilds, excellent performance, but we did run into some weird 1% stuttering as well when textures were being loaded in and out of the game. The Witcher 3, great overall performance, but again, a little weird stutter. So we had like some weird stutters going on in the last 3 games in a row, which was a bit odd. Makes me kind of want to do a system restart and retest those games, but I can't do that right now in the middle of the live stream because we're here at the end. Overall, performance on the Scar 18, very, very good. Build quality, the fit and finish of this machine has been excellent in my experience. The glass trackpad, the touchpad, the display, the webcam, mediocre. The speakers, mediocre, especially for a premium system. The lighting effects is the best lighting effects I've ever seen in a gaming laptop. The anime matrix on the back, gorgeous, beautiful. Port selection on here, very, very good, except for full-size SD card slot. Is it worth, $3,400? Probably. Like, it's a very competitive buy. The 5090 version at $4,500, that's a big ask. Harder to recommend that version. I think that one should be priced more like $3,900 or maybe $4,000 to make it a more competitive upsell price. But the toolless bottom, the 360-degree lighting, the chassis design, the coolness of the chassis when you play games, and the overall experience with Armory Crate is generally still pretty good, even though the settings are all messed up and the UI is not as good as it used to be. Overall, still good and reliable functioning control software, at least for gaming laptops. So in that sense, it's a thumbs up. 5080 Scar seems like a good value, especially given all of the premium feature set. And I do think the anime matrix, the upgraded lighting, and the slight changes from the Strix G18 is probably worth the $340 if you're after those premium effects. If you just want the performance and you don't care about the mini LED screen, then the Strix G18 might be even better value. There are better value laptops out there on the market, but in terms of the Asus premium 18-inch laptops, these are the 2 that are most likely to be recommendable. Of course, there's always the 9955HX3D with the 5070 Ti. Don't know what the price will be on that one yet, but that one will also be potentially a better option than this one if you're after esports gaming performance, because of the HX3D's esports gaming on the CPU is just going to be better than the Intel 275HX. And if you haven't checked out my side-by-side benchmark comparison between the Intel 275HX and the 9955HX3D, it's definitely worth watching. The 9955HX is definitely the better gaming CPU in this generation. And it costs more, so that's the trade-off. You're going to spend more money on it for the better performance. But if you want to know how much better, be sure to check out that video. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you in the next one. Brandon out.